Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Ana Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome back to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ana Lara, and we have James back with us on this episode. We're going to talk about men's mental health and, what are some strategies, some things that we can do to help more men get help. So welcome back, James.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So in the last episode, we talked a lot about men's physical health, but I really wanted to talk about mental health and just really work through some of the stigma that comes from it. And there's a fine balance. There is a fine balance because I don't agree that men should be weeping and being vulnerable and to everyone. There's a time and place.
Sure.
And I respect that men are strong and they want to keep that, that perception of themselves as being strong people, but getting help is not a sign of weakness.
It's definitely not. I think quite the opposite. And I think that the mindset needs to shift because, as I had mentioned earlier, for generationally, we've been told, handle it on your own.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Suck it up.
Suck it up.
Don't cry.
Quit being a baby.
Only girls cry.
I have to admit where I'm at fault, and I sometimes do find myself falling into that with my son and my daughter, where I'm telling them, "Don't cry, suck it up, be a man." But it's not fair. It's not fair to do, and there does need to be a mental shift in that because seeking help is not a sign of weakness. I think quite the opposite. Seeking help is a sign that you recognize there's a problem and you want to fix it. I think that that's strong. I think that that's brave. I don't think that that's cowardice. I don't think that that's taking an easy way out. I think that's you really kind of stepping up to the plate and understanding I'm not doing okay and I want to be doing better and I don't want to keep suffering. So what can I do differently?
Mm-hmm. There's a reason, in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, when God created man, he said, it is not good for man to be alone. So God created a helper for him. And so in this essence, if men were to start understanding how they're created, the purpose of their existence, and that there will be times that all of us, men or women, we will need help from someone else. In this life, it is impossible to get things done completely on your own. This podcast, there's a team of people. Bill, my producer, who helps me a lot, but I have my social media person who helps me. I have my marketing person that helps me, my assistant. There's other people that help me in my business. And I did have the mindset of I got it on my own and did it for myself for a long time, but it doesn't work. Mentally and physically, it starts to wear on you. So men have this they just kind of, and some of it has been their upbringing. It's been the upbringing of both moms and the dads of how they have the experience that they've grown up in their home. It tells them a lot about what's okay to, how to behave and what's okay to interact. What has been, I know you've shared before your experience with depression for a long time.
Yeah.
What was that point? What was that pivotal point for you that you realized that you were experiencing depression? Or did you even have the word depression in mind?
Without getting into too deep,
mm-hmm.
I was unhappy with myself. I was unhappy with the choices that I was making. I was sad. I didn't feel like I was in the right place at the right time. I felt very selfish And I realized that my selfishness and my self-centeredness was causing me to constantly just be sad all the time. And I hated how I felt. And although I can't pinpoint an exact time, I'm sure that there were intrusive thoughts intrusive thoughts of, you're not enough, you're not good enough. You are a terrible person. And so I realized I don't want to continue to feel this way. It's affecting me. It's affecting my relationship. It's affecting my daughter was very, very young. I don't think that it affected her because I wasn't such a clinically depressed case where I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It was just very faint. And so I sought help. And got on a myriad of different drugs over the years. I think I was on Wellbutrin for probably the majority of it. They threw in some Zoloft in there. They threw in a couple of other ones. I don't even remember. And I was always scared to get off of it. I was always afraid, well, if I get off of it, I'm going to backslide. I'm going to feel worse. And so I always made it a point to make sure that I took it. But probably in 2023, I started getting this sense that I don't think I really need to be on this anymore. And as a guy, in a guy headspace, it was, okay, when this happens, that will be the event that will cause me to stop doing this, or this will be the event that makes me to start doing this. And I kept waiting for that event to happen, and it never happened. And then in 2024, I made a kind of a mental decision. I was going to wean myself off of it. So we're on a Disney cruise with my family, and one day I don't take it intentionally, and the next day I don't take it, and the third day I kind of forgot, and the fourth day I kind of forgot, and then a week went by, and guess what? I was still alive. And I wasn't depressed, and I didn't want to jump off the boat. And 1 week led to a month led to 2, and now here we are almost a year later, no antidepressants, completely cold turkey. And I think a large part of that is due to a couple of factors that we spoke about before. Eating right, exercising, supplementation, finding a group of people that I could connect with. When you feel like you have a sense of purpose, when you feel like you are intentional about the actions that you're doing, I think you're less likely to backslide. You're more focused on how do I keep pushing forward and not so concerned with how am I going to backslide. So I think a lot of it had to do with mental space. And I think a lot of it, shout out to my company, they took a huge chance on me. I had no pharma experience at all. And I said, I can do this, guys. I can do this. And I started doing what I now do. And I started to make an impact. And I started to see my numbers grow. And I started to see my providers come back to me and tell me, hey, what you suggested was really good, right? This product that you have, which you
yeah,
don't need to shout it out.
we do. It's great.
But I think that doing something where I felt like I was making a difference put me in a different mental space. I didn't have time for the nonsense. I didn't have time for those intrusive thoughts. I was too busy doing things, pushing forward. I didn't allow myself to slide backwards. And I think that's really, really important for men and women to understand is find a community, find a group, find 1 or 2 people that you connect with and have them be your support network. Once you have that, you can always rely on them to kind of give you a boost. So when I'm feeling down, I'll reach out to the guys.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling down today. My best friend will always send me something highly inappropriate, but always exactly what I need to hear. People on my team will send me things. Hey, you're doing great. Keep up the good work. Or go get after it today. You've got this. Sometimes just those simple words of affirmation can totally change your mindset. And I think it's really important that guys have a consistent flow of that.
Yeah. You said something that I always think it's very important in our life, and that's purpose. Having purpose, knowing what your purpose is. Everyone has a purpose in their life. So it's really important for you to identify that. And maybe you're 30 and 40 years old and you haven't identified what that purpose is, but there is one, and so I think it's really important to maybe, whether it's, anxiety or depression that a person's experiencing, I always say if it's not your physical body that's telling you something's wrong, then it's your soul that's screaming at
Sure.
you. There's something we need, that you need to feed us spiritually. And so, like I said, because there's many medical conditions that can cause depression and anxiety, including the thyroid and blood sugar dysregulation, hormone dysregulation. And that could be it. But if you fix that, or you're someone who you are eating healthy, you are exercising, you're doing all the right things, and you're still feeling that, then I tell people, then you got to look further inward.
Agreed.
And look at, what is my soul needing right now? Is it healing from the past? Because depression, I always like to explain what is depression and what is anxiety, besides the feelings of it. Depression really is, us being stuck, looking at our past decisions. And the voices creep in and you start thinking, I shouldn't. You still hold shame and guilt for some of the things, and that will become depressing. It pushes us down. It makes us feel small, insignificant. We're not good enough. We're bad, because we did those things. And forgiveness, which is an episode I'm going to do, or, talk on, is that the important thing is that we learn to forgive ourselves the same way that we have to learn to forgive others. We also have to give ourselves grace and mercy and forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we made when you were younger. Because the reality is that in this world, no one is perfect and no one has figured it all out. Everyone makes a mistake. And I always tell people, if you were 20, 15 years old, whatever age, and you made a lot of mistakes, a lot of foolish mistakes, the point is that you learn from them now. What did you learn from it? Reflect, but don't get stuck there. And forgive yourself and give grace yourself, because that's what depression is. You keep looking to the past without really a resolution, without bringing closure, and not being able to move forward. You're stuck there.
I feel like we could do an entire you and I episode on exactly what you just said, because for years I carried such a heavy burden of guilt and regret and remorse and sadness and shame for how I lived my life. And it really took a lot of grace from myself. It took a lot of grace from the people that I hurt, and forgiveness from the people that I hurt. And it still bothered me. I think for me at least, and I know that this is true for you, faith has now played a major role in that. Because what I can't control, what I don't feel like I have a handle on, I just have to give it up to God.
Yeah.
And I've really been relying heavily on my faith to keep me in the right mindset, to help me to make good decisions, help me to do the right thing, help me to be a leader and not a follower. Help me to unburden myself from the guilt and shame, the regret, the remorse, the sadness, the less than feelings that I carried around for so long. Remove that from me, and I feel so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. I pray with my kids every night. It's the same prayers over and over, but they have come to really like it now. Now, my little one will say, can we do the 3? She wants me to tell her a story. It's a made up story. I ate 15 pizzas. I got fat. I climbed on top of a house. I was a hot air balloon. Then she wants to hear I love yous, which we do our I love yous. And then both kids, my son and my daughter, want to do prayers. Now they're usually sleeping by the time that we get to it. But we do our prayers, and now they're asking for it. So I know that faith is coming off of me and going on to them.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can have a close relationship with God where if they do make mistakes, they don't have to live with it for as long as I did, because unburdening yourself frees you so much, so much. I still feel bad about the things that I've done, but I've made my amends, and I know that the people that I've hurt have forgiven me, and they've moved on, and so have I. It never really goes away. I think it just gets diminished to the point where you don't really notice it anymore. Mm-hmm. I've come to terms with the fact that I made bad choices and I've done bad things, but God knows.
God knows.
He knows what I've done. He knows what I'm going to do. And I just have to put faith in the fact that I'm an imperfect person. I've made imperfect choices, but God still loves me and I'm thriving. So faith played a huge role in that for me.
You know, the best gift you can give your children is that faith and teaching them his word, God's word. That is the best gift that any man, any father can give to their child. And it's not just in words, but it's in your actions and the way you carry yourself. And you're right, we're not perfect. I want to read this scripture. I just happened to have it. Look at that. It was not part of this conversation.
That's how it works. I bet you if I open up NLT right now,
Let's do it.
That there's going to be a verse that both you and I.
It's Matthew 11:28-38. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And those are the words of Jesus. And I truly believe that, forgiveness, it is a process. And I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray that God delivers that, cuts that off of you. Because the past is the past, and that's not who you are. That it's like when a snake sheds that their skin, it's done. They're not that skin anymore.
Yeah.
They're outside of that.
1,000%.
A snake is not like, oh my God, look what I left behind. They're done.
Agreed.
They move past it. But as humans, we have a conscious, we have a subconscious mind, we have a soul, we have a spirit. We're a little bit more complex than a snake.
A little bit more.
A little bit more. And the enemy will always use those past experiences, the mistakes that we've made, to throw it in our face to get us to feel bad. Because God is not a God who does that. God forgives you. When you forgive and you move on, he forgives you, and he wants to see you live out your life. He knows that we're going to make mistakes, but I know that your soul is not going to make the same mistake that you did 10 years ago, however past it was.
Yeah.
You're just not. Your higher spirit won't let you do that.
Completely different person.
Completely different. So you're not that person anymore. You're this new version that God is working in you to help transform you, not just transform your mind, but transform your spiritual heart, transform you from the inside out. We have this thing, not all naturopaths believe it, but I do, that healing comes from above, to below, into our bodies, and from the inside out.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense for physical or mental, emotional stuff.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
So today is, he will listen to the prayers of the destitute. He will not reject their pleas.
We are heard.
You're burdened.
Yeah.
Ask to be unburdened.
If your child, let's say your 4-year-old, he drops a vase, an expensive vase, he breaks it. You don't stop loving him. You might be upset.
I might be mad.
You might be mad, but you don't stop loving him.
It's a vase. It's replaceable.
It's replaceable.
It's replaceable.
And oftentimes, not to upset our parents or anywhere in our ancestry, but sometimes people hurt the child because they made a mistake, like break something. And they don't understand the ramifications of how we talk to, and guilty, There's times that when I'm not doing well, I'm tired or hungry, right? Hangry.
Yeah.
That my child does something and I might yell at them and then I feel bad. But the good thing is I go to my child and say, I'm sorry that I yelled at you. I'm sorry that I said that. I love you. I love you no matter what. And they need to hear that too.
Agreed.
Because when our children hear us humble ourselves and apologize for our mistakes, our children are willing to forgive really quick on the spot.
Really quick.
Isn't that amazing?
Really quick.
Why is it that children can do that, but not us? We can still be thinking about, I still feel bad about what I did 10 or 15 years ago.
I think that's the beauty of childhood. It's the beauty of children, is that they don't hold on to those things. We get mad, we snap. If we're smart, if we're good people, we recognize that we snapped and we can immediately go and try and correct the situation. I'm very guilty of this because my father raised my sister and I under, NYPD, strict Italian Catholic upbringing. There wasn't a lot of nonsense that we could do and get away with. And so my father did everything that he could, and he's an amazing human being and an amazing father, and I love him. There were things that he did that I hated, that I have found myself doing or almost doing, that I've had to backpedal and remind my kids, listen, I'm sorry. I was in a bad mood. My sugar's high. My sugar's low. I was frustrated with mom. Whatever the situation was, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. I knew it was an accident. Look, you're not in trouble. Dad made a mistake. I love you no matter what, always, always, and forever. Can you forgive me? Usually you don't even have to get to the do you forgive me part before my son has his arms around you and he's crying. It's okay, Dad. You don't have to cry. Don't get upset. It's okay.
They're pure, and there's such purity in children. Their innocence.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Is. I always say children are our greatest teachers if we're willing to listen and learn. They are our greatest teachers. My daughters have definitely raised me up. So I heard someone many years ago before I had kids said that our parents raise us, but our children finish doing the job.
That makes sense.
And it does, because being a parent is just a whole different experience. I mean, you see all these people who want to grow and enlighten and grow spiritual maturity. I'm like, go have some kids. That's the test.
It'll definitely change you.
They will really test you. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're sharing. And when it comes to men, specifically for mental health, and I'm glad that you brought in the spiritual aspect, because I find that you see this in churches a lot, where women are attending and the men are not. And, men were called to be into leadership. How important has your relationship with God been in your journey of mental health?
If we're going to be honest, not big long term. Short term, as of recent, very big. Mm-hmm. Long term, my strategy for mental health was medicate. Mm-hmm. Medicate, find what works. I have some statistics here that I think are pretty powerful. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women, and it's the 8th leading cause of death. Mm-hmm. Men are less likely to seek help and self-medicate with substances. Men are more likely to binge drink and are 2 times more likely to die from an opioid overdose. And in terms of therapy and getting help, only 1 in 4 men with pronounced mental health actually seek help.
Yeah.
So where does faith come in? If you're already faithful, that's a journey that you have to walk. For me, my faith was not strong enough during, we'll call it the height of my depression, that I felt like I could lean on God. Yeah. I thought, I'll just medicate with whatever it was, whether it was Wellbutrin or Zoloft or I can't even think of the other ones, but those were the 2 main ones.
That's why I can't remember.
As of recent, I've realized that without the use of pharmaceuticals, I need to get my relief a different way. I like to go to the gym. So for me, that's a huge mental relief. I go to the gym, I work out, I feel better, I look better, I see gains, I see changes. That's really motivating. So I keep doing it. But now I'm seeing that same effect spiritually, where I'm reaching out to God every night, every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Sometimes it's just to say, thank you. Thank you for getting my daughter home from school today, right? So as of recent, spiritual health has really taken the place of pharmaceutical help. For me, it's huge. And I really like it. I like it, one, because it's easy. It costs me nothing to close my eyes and fold my hands. Nothing.
Yeah.
It takes 2 seconds, right? I sit here right now. I'm praying right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much, but for me, the relief that it gives me is so much greater than what I got before. Because one, I'm not clouded by anything. I don't have any, antidepressant running through my body. I don't have it systemically coursing through my veins. What I have is I have my health and I have my faith. And it's really gotten me to a really, really, really good place.
Yeah. I always approach this cautious because I really think it's an individual thing. I always see people as an individual. It's hard to just generalize everything for people and say the right thing, because there's so many different components and moving things for that men are experiencing specifically. Whether it's a physical situation, if it's mental health, is there something going on with your brain? Men who've played sports, who've had concussions, histories of concussions, that can still have a lingering effect on the brain. If you've been on substances, whether it's drug use or alcohol use, like all of that has an effect on the brain. Now, I'm a believer that the brain can heal, that any part of you can heal and repair itself, doing the right things, giving it the right things physically, whether it's getting the mental help or the spiritual help. And so I get to see these two different worlds of, the Christian viewpoint and then, or any spiritual viewpoint, and then the medical side. And I'm trying to marry the two because we are all of it. You can't separate the human experience from the physical, mental, or spiritual. We are spirit, soul, and body, period. Whether you want to believe it or not, it's there. And so there's different ways to approach people, and there's not a cookie cutter approach to mental health. So men might be watching this, and if they grew up in a very toxic home environment where they didn't have a male figure, a positive male figure, or maybe they did have a male figure, but they were just toxic anyways, or they did have a good mom, or they didn't have a mom, or sometimes they didn't have either parent. Whatever it is, all of that has an impact on you, whether you want to believe it or not. I've had many men in my office say, yeah, but that happened a long time ago. They're in their 40s. It happened a long time ago. I'm like, yeah, but that inner child in you never received what it needed. And this is going to be a whole different conversation in the future, but there's different forms of attachment styles that we form early on, from conception to 2 years old, but really into the 8 years, we really form we have a certain attachment style. And if it wasn't a safe and loving attachment, which, let me be honest, the majority of people haven't had a safe, loving attachment style. It's either they're an anxious attachment or they're avoidant. And I've learned that there's two types of avoidance. So, there's these categories of what kind of attachment style that you have. That, when you get older, it shows up in everything. How we communicate in our work, with other people, with our children, with your spouse, with yourself. How you handle situations. Do you run away from? Do you avoid stressful situations? And men tend to be in a lot of an avoidance. You just avoid the problem. Yeah. And I think that's why men tend to avoid the mental issues, the physical issues. They just keep avoiding it, thinking it's going to go away, and it doesn't go away, and the problem just gets bigger. So, I would love for men to at least start exploring options. There's so many resources online. I'll probably put some on this, on the notes to this episode, or link it in there, because there's so many references of assessments you can do online to see which attachment style do you have,
Sure.
or what kind of different areas of mental health do you need. Is it something that you need medication? Because if you do need it and it's going to keep you from committing suicide, then yes, then do that. But that should be just to give you time to get the rest in place. And so there are mental health experts out there that are working more holistically too.
Yeah.
They're not going straight to the medications. They're saying, let's do these other therapies, let's do these other things and see if that works. And they're the experts, so they know when someone really needs to be medicated, right? If it's really severe. Because what happens ultimately when men do suppress emotionally or they don't get the help is that it starts to impact their marriage.
Yeah.
And it starts to impact the relationship they have with their children. They get to be older and they're disconnected from their children. I hear this all the time. That's what I'm telling you. Like, I have women in their 50s and 60s. Kids are all out of the home. And even as having adult children, the mom will say, my husband's upset because when the kids call, they call me. They don't talk to dad. And dad is like, how come no one calls me?
Yeah.
And then I've had men say, in their 50s say, I made a mistake. I worked all my life thinking that my only priority was to work, to pay the bills, to provide. And I missed out on having a relationship with my family, with my children. And now they're grown and they don't want anything to do with me. And so if younger men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s would understand that yes, we appreciate you working, we appreciate you being the provider, the protector, but they also want you.
Yeah.
Your family wants you. Your children want you.
Everybody wants you to be present. And I think, again, we kind of touched on this, generationally speaking. I mean, from the dawn of men have kind of fallen into this, we are the provider. We are supposed to do X, Y, and Z. We are not supposed to show emotion. We are supposed to be strong and stoic. We're supposed to be the disciplinarian in the house. We're supposed to be the breadwinner. There's all of these labels that are put on. But I think that in those examples of the guys that look back and they say, well, I should have done this. You can do both. You can still be a strong dad and be a disciplinarian, but still show up for your kids' soccer games. You can still be the breadwinner and still read to your children at night. It doesn't have to be either or. And I think that when we start looking at the decline in mental health, it's guys feel burdened that they have to do everything. I have to do everything for everybody. And that can be really cumbersome and it can be really tiring. I think that as a society, we need to, one, appreciate dads a lot more. One of the silly things that I noticed is like the changing tables. Changing tables are almost primarily in women's bathrooms. They're not in men's bathrooms. But there's a really big push right now for dads, only dads, right? Instead of OnlyFans, it's only dads. There's like girl dad, cheer dad. There's all of these dads that I think are now starting to realize that I don't have to be X, Y, and Z. I don't have to be a hard ass. I don't have to be some super tough macho guy. Yeah. I can be a cheer dad. I can put on my pink shirt. I can wear my pink watch, and I can do these girly things. It doesn't have to be an either or.
Yeah.
And I think that getting caught up in that mental trap is where we start to really see that decline, where you'll start to see men who want to medicate, self-medicate. They drink themselves into oblivion. They don't want to feel the burden that, they've got to put food on the table. They fall into addiction, or they fall into these really detrimental vices because they're they feel alone. And so they're trying to unburden themselves from that feeling of having to do everything by slipping into these vices. And I think there needs to be a major monumental shift in that. And I think it really starts with kind of words of affirmation.
Yeah.
So if you know a dad out there that's doing really good, who's showing up for games, who's putting the work in, who's playing with his kids after he gets home, give that dad a shout out.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really nice to hear when we're doing good, as opposed to, why didn't you do this? How come you didn't do that? Why did I have to do X, Y, and Z? I think a little bit of praise goes a long way. But then again, I'm a Leo. So, I mean, stroke my ego, tell me I'm pretty. You could still set me in the corner for, another couple of years and then just take me out and stroke my ego and tell me I'm pretty and I'm good to go. But I think it's really nice, generally speaking, to hear you're doing good.
Yeah.
I always try and praise my wife, overly praise her, because it's tough. She is a boss at her job. She is an absolute alpha and dominant, and she's super mom. Yeah. Sometimes we don't get the praise that we maybe not even need. I need it. That's my love language.
That's
is words
of
affirmation.
Yeah.
So I need to be told that I'm doing good, which is why I love my job, because every week I can see if I'm doing good or not.
James, you're doing very well, okay? You're doing well. And then it's important, too, to understand what is your love language, I've learned that there's not just 4, there's a little bit more. And I'm like, the one that I really, acts of service, I'm an acts of service person. It's like the little things that people do, like that just, makes me, excited. But also being heard is a big act of service, of acts of love for me. When someone is listening to me, like I know we're engaged, like that to me is a sign of love and respect, Wow, you said so many great things. Just like overwhelmed. But no, you're right. I think that more people need to, speak positivity into each other's life and acknowledge the good things that they're doing. Not just, I think it could get very routine in life, and you get caught up in the busyness of life, which is why I tell my patients, like, slow down. Just slow down, including men. Women get crazy with doing things that are not important, and it takes away from time and energy from you. But it's okay to slow down and just like go through your life and prioritize what's most important on your plate. So I'm going to tell you, just because my dad passed away on Father's Day last year, and I'm not bitter about it. Because my father gave me a gift of faith of God in such a beautiful way without it being forceful. Sure. He was a man that his actions showed his faith and his love in us. I always said, I knew my father loved me not because he had to tell me, but because I could feel his love. And he showed it through his patience, through his kindness. I still have yet to meet someone with that amount of patience that he has. And so that's how I knew he loved me. If there was a miscommunication on my part, a misunderstanding on my part, he just would smile and laugh like, oh, it's okay. And that to me was the greatest demonstration of what Jesus is like, that he's a loving father.
Hey, you made a mistake.
It's okay.
It's okay. My
mom was a different story, but that's a story for a different time, right? But, so I think that, slow down, prioritize what's important to you. God, you and your family, and your health, your well-being is a priority. Because if you're not feeling well, you cannot perform in your job. You cannot be present with your family.
I think that it also ties into mental health, to really bring it back to mental health. Because if you're not in a good mental place, I think you're less likely to want to pursue something that is more of an unknown, right? Faith is a complete unknown. We don't know. We think we do.
But we don't know.
But we don't. We don't. And so I think that getting yourself into a good mental space is really, really important. I did a presentation at our national sales meeting on the power of positive thinking. Studies have shown, and I don't have the data, but basically studies have shown that you live longer, you accomplish more, and you're more successful if you're in a good mental headspace.
Absolutely.
So I think that positioning yourself to be in a good mental headspace opens up the doors for a closer relationship with whatever your higher power may be, whether that's God, whether it's the universe, whether it's, any other religion that's out there. Getting yourself into that mindset, I think, is really, really helpful, and it opens the door for even more. Being rooted in faith, I think, definitely helps with recognizing where your head's actually at. So when you're spiraling, slow down. Slow down. Okay. A car is not going to crash through the living room and kill the family. Okay. That's an insane thought.
Yeah.
We don't even live near a road. Okay. You stop thinking that the plane is going to crash into the Alps. You're not even on a plane right now. Let those thoughts go. Give those thoughts up to God. Right? When I started doing that, not only did I mentally feel better, but I felt more complete. I feel whole I think maybe for the first time ever. All the boxes that I needed to check in my life are now checked. And I think it's the first time that I'm even realizing that all of those boxes are checked. My children are safe. My children are healthy. My wife is healthy. Our relationship is healthy. My job is healthy. Spiritually, I'm healthy. Mentally, I'm still insane.
Work in progress.
It's always going to be a work in progress. Like everything, it could use improvement. But just altogether doing better. And I think that is where mental health really needs to shine a light, or that we as a society need to shine a light, is there's resources out there for you to be in this space that I'm in. Doesn't take money. No. Quite the opposite. It doesn't cost anything. Like, all the more reason for you to do it. I'm sorry for all the sins that I've committed, God. Forgive me for what I did. When I close my eyes, let me wake up in the morning and I have a new start. Cool, done, boom.
Yeah.
Maybe it adds relief to you. Maybe it doesn't. But it's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that that's where we really need to be looking, is outside of substances. Yes, there is a place for pharmacological intervention. However, I think that we can really circumvent that by getting people involved in community, giving people a sense of purpose, having them feel like whatever it is that they're doing is making a difference. That's huge. And that really doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't.
Well, as we wrap this up, man, take away thank you for sharing all that and being on this episode.
Of course. Thank you.
We'll have to see what other future ones we can get you back on here.
I'll clear my schedule anytime you need me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, for men watching this, or if you're a woman with a man in your life, share this with them. And you just remember that in order to heal, sometimes you have to slow it down. Just slow down so that you have time to reflect on what your priorities are, to find balance in your life, find purpose, and find a community. You don't have to do this alone. That's not what we're here for. We're here to help each other out. I hope you've been blessed by the message in this episode. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raíces, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.